Hey friends, I'm Sarah from Ensign Insights. You may have noticed that some of your brush pens say they are for watercolor. So what does that even mean? And if that's true, how does it work? Watercolor is expensive, so wouldn't it be great to be able to use brush pens that you already have? In this video, I will be using brush pens as watercolor to show you how easy it is. Plus, I'll be comparing all of my brush pens to see which is the best for watercolor. To clarify, this isn't every brush pen I own. These are only my large brush pens with a felt tip. They're all water-based except one, which I will show you the difference. This first one is Tombow Dual Brush Pens. If you want to know how these compare to other brands with the dual tip, I will link to that video in the description box. Using any palette or plastic, you can scribble with the pen and then activate it as watercolor by using a wet brush. It's that simple. I'm using a Pentel water brush. I really liked the Tombow. All of the colors were strong and I felt like they had a lot of ink. I'm blending with rainbow colors because that's my favorite color combo and it shows a good range of colors in each marker. If you want to learn how to make rainbow backgrounds for your lettering, stick around to the end for something I have to help you with that. Next is Artist's Loft. I felt like these pens didn't have as much ink and I had to keep going back with a pen to get more color on my palette. The end result is not as vibrant. I would love to hear your thoughts on any of these pens if you have used them, or especially if you've used them as watercolor. Feel free to leave a comment below with your opinion. Do you agree with me, or have you had a different experience? Have you ever used these as actual watercolor? I think with these Artist Lofts, the pink and the purple are the most vibrant, maybe the blue, but the other ones were really hard to work with. Then we have Kuretake Fudebiyori. These are one of my favorites for lettering, so I was really excited to try them out as watercolor, and I was excited to see that they turned out really well. They're even more vibrant than Tombow, so these are definitely in my top favorites for watercolor as well as lettering. If you want to see all of these pens for lettering, I will be doing a comparison video soon for the lettering aspect instead of just the watercolor aspect, although this is such a fun way to add some color to your lettering. You can use these rainbow backgrounds in any lettering piece. Next we have the Sakura Koi coloring brush pen. On the package, it looks like these are meant for watercolor even more than for lettering. They do work for lettering, though they're not my favorite, but as watercolor, it is really good quality. However, they are a lot more pastel than the others. If you like pastel, this will work for you, but personally, I'm not much of a pastel person. Next is the Winsor and Newton Watercolor Markers. These are easily confused with the Winsor and Newton Brush Markers, which don't actually work for lettering, and they are alcohol-based instead of water-based. As for the watercolor markers, these are amazing for lettering and they work great for actual watercolor. The pink wasn't as vibrant as I had hoped, and the other colors are more subdued instead of the really bright colors like the other ones. These look really bright right here, but when they dried, they are not as bright, and I'll show you that compared to the other ones in the end. They were really easy to blend, although it wasn't my favorite, but it wasn't my least favorite. Then we have Staedtler Mars Graphic Duo watercolor brush pens. These actually say watercolor in the title. These ones I don't love for lettering, and you can see these in my comparison video with all of the Tombow Dual Brush Pen similar brands. The pink and green didn't have much ink coming out on the palette, so I had to keep going in with those, but the blue and purple was amazing. I really love that blue. These ones worked great as watercolor, but they seem to be a little more pastel than what I prefer. Next is the Marvy Le Plume II brush pens. On the package, it says to use these to color stamps. I don't do stamps, but I'm sure that probably works great. But for watercolor, they do work, they do blend well. They are kind of in the middle for me in vibrancy. not as vibrant as some, but they're not as pastel. It does depend on the colors that you're using, and I thought this was an okay mix of colors. Then we have art line sticks, brush markers. These were my first actual brush markers, so I really like these. But in the palette, it felt like I was getting no ink coming out, so that was frustrating. It did work well when I added the water to activate it as watercolor. Just most of the colors were very pastel until the blue and purple, which were great. So it looks odd to have the top half pastel and the bottom really bright. So I guess this one, it depends on what colors you're using as well. Next we have Crayola, which I absolutely love. These are the Crayola broadline, and they're definitely a favorite for lettering and watercolor now. I really liked how the blend turned out with these colors, and think of how inexpensive that is for such quality watercolor. There's some cheap watercolor out there that doesn't even look as good as these cheap markers. So with these Crayola, you really cannot go wrong. Then we have Ecoline brush pens. I felt like this was cheating a little bit because Ecoline has liquid watercolor and these are basically just the marker form. I really liked how they turned out, and I felt like they were really juicy, so a lot of the ink was coming out on the palette, which is super helpful. The colors blended really easily, and they're nice and vibrant. They go well together. Before I get to my favorite one, here are the Kuretake Zig Brushables, which are not water-based. They are pigment ink, light fast, and waterproof. I honestly did not think that they could blend, but it turns out you can as long as the ink doesn't dry. They are very pastel though, the most pastel. But these could be great for something more permanent that you don't want to fade. And I went back in with water after it had dried and I couldn't move any of the pigment, so it really is waterproof. With the other ones, after they dry, I can still go in with a wet brush and move the ink around. The last one is my favorite with Karin Markers. As a disclaimer, I have done some work with Karin Markers, but this video is not sponsored. I just love them so much. You can see how much ink comes out and how vibrant the colors are. Somehow these are different, so adding water to the ink doesn't fade out the color at all. This is by far the most vibrant and the easiest to work with. To recap, I will show you my top favorite and place them side by side. Tombow is great quality. Karin Markers are definitely the brightest and most vibrant. Kuretake Fudebiyori is the next vibrant. Crayola is an all-around favorite for me because of the price and its good quality, and Ecoline was also a good vibrancy and easy to use. So those are my top 5. Next on my list would be Windsor and Newton Watercolor Markers. It's great quality, just a little more subdued. The Sakura Koi, Artline Sticks, Staedtler, and Marvy were all more like pastel. The Artist Loft was my least favorite, unless I was only using the blue and purple. And last, you can see how pastel the Kuretake Zig Brushables are. Definitely the most pastel. I blend rainbows in a lot of my lettering pieces. I wanted to share that with you, so I created a simple Skillshare class that you could take for free, and here is what the class is about. Are you looking for a way to add some color to your lettering? Maybe you've seen watercolor backgrounds, but you don't want to buy watercolor? If so, this class is for you. I'm Sarah, creator of Ensign Insights, hand letter artist, and lover of ice cream and all colors. In this class, I'm going to teach you how to create 3 rainbow watercolor backgrounds to spice up your hand lettering. And without watercolor. You will learn how to use brush markers or any water-based marker as watercolor. The first background will be simple stripes to learn how the process works. The second background is just the right rainbow ombre blend without making everything turn brown. And the last background is a rainbow blend around a shape. The goal of the class is for you to leave with 3 specific projects you can easily create to add some color to your lettering. I can't wait to share these colors with you. Let's get started. If you've never heard of Skillshare, it's amazing. It's a platform where you can take all kinds of classes. You can use the link below in my description box to get 2 months free. As always, thank you for watching this video. Don't forget to subscribe, and I will see you next time.